All right, folks, welcome back. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we are going to be talking about the cornerbacks. Whether we're talking about starters or, a slot corner, we're going to get into it, mainly focusing on the starters, though. Before we dive into that, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow me on all social media at JK Bogan, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick. And in addition to that, just want to let you guys know that today's sponsor is Mando, who have really sponsored the entire mini-series. So shout out to them. You can get $5 off your starter pack using the code JKBogan. Go over to shopmando.com today to get in on the action if you're looking for body wash or deodorant that is literally for all over your body. Be sure to check out Mando today. Again, JK Bogan, $5 off your starter pack, which is a 40% off value. And let's dive into it. All right, here we are. We are nearing the end of this mini-series. I might do an edge defender one, but I might not. Just because I really want to get to my mock free agency. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for that video. I do have that already figured out. It's just a matter of recording it, but I do have my mock free agency figured out. I say free agency instead of off-season because while I'll have some trades in there, I don't want to do a mock draft yet. I don't feel like I know the NFL draft class enough for me to give a really good mock draft. And so I'm just not going to waste your time on that. So, as you guys know. But anyway, let's get into it. Want to start off with this. I am not sure what the Rams are going to do with Darius Williams. I have not heard anything on that. I still don't think it's a guarantee he's back. I would probably lean towards he is back. But with Cooper Kupp gone, moving on from Jonah Jackson, it would not shock me at all with a guy that doesn't have a lot of guaranteed money left, as I think it's about $1 million to $2 million left on his contract. When he signed that for 3 years, we all kind of looked at that and saw 1 year, right? So we'll see. But I would not be surprised if they move on from Darius Williams. Save them about $3 to $4 million in cap space, incur a $5 million cap penalty if they do it pre-June 1st. But in addition to that, Darian Kendrick. Kendrick suffers a season-ending injury before the thing even starts. They were really high about him. I can tell you that from people I talked to. They were really, really high on Darian Kendrick and his development. They felt like this was going to be a big year for him. And he goes down with a season-ending injury before anything really gets going. And now it's kind of put him behind the 8 ball. But because he's already started games, the escalator, the performance escalator that is built into the CBA, of course, in these rookie deals, he went up to about $3 million for your cap hit. So the Rams would be saving $3 million if they cut him. Now, I am of the belief that the Rams don't have that many needs, and especially at corner. I think if you bring back Akello, you have Darius Williams, you have Kobe Durant, that was maybe the best 3-corner tandem to end the season. That wasn't the issue you lost. That is not even close to why you lost to the Eagles. They absolutely shut these guys down. Devontae Smith, Justin Jefferson, right? Jordan Addison, A.J. Brown, shut down. Akello, Kobe, and Darius all playing at a really high level at the end of the season. So, if you'll excuse me, that's why I don't necessarily believe in the idea they need to go out and get a number 1 corner, because I think they already have a really good cornerback room. Now you add Darian Kendrick, and that's your 4th. And I'm feeling pretty darn good because Darian Kendrick was starting in a season that you went to the playoffs in, 2023. So I'm not sitting here saying, Darian Kendrick is going to be a superstar, but you got those 4. Don't forget, you also have Emmanuel Forbes. I'm big on Emmanuel Forbes. I am. But there are other people that are, but you get to the free agency and we get kind of that, what is it? We get lost in the sauce. You see all these new names, you see the possibilities, and you're like, oh, yeah, I want that guy. And you forget what's already on the roster. They like Josh Wallace. They like Charles Woods. I'm sure they like some of the guys like Cam Lampkin. who they added in UDFA. If you're scoffing right now, well, you haven't been paying attention, because guys in UDFA, they start on this team, whether you realize it or not. Christian Roseboom, right? Of course, he's one of them. But there are other guys. I mean, Jalen McCullough, he's going to have a significant role moving forward. How about Michael Hoyt, right? So I'm never going to turn away any of these guys just because they're UDFAs or they're on the practice squad or what have you. AJ Green, they picked him up. We'll see. He didn't get a chance to be in camp with the Rams. We'll see what ends up happening with him. We'll see what ends up happening with Sean Jolly. I'm not saying that I trust these guys to win starting jobs or anything, but when I push back on the idea that the Rams need this guy and this guy and this guy at corner, this is why. I don't think they need that. And if you watch at the end of the year, at no point did the secondary look like they were the issue. The only reason the Rams didn't advance against the Eagles, if it had anything to do with their defense, is their run defense. And to be honest with you, they held Saquon Barkley in check aside from 3 explosive runs. But that is what we're talking about, 3 explosive runs. So my last video, linebackers, how do you address that? You get a guy like Jamie Sherwood. Cuts off Saquon Barkley at the perfect angle. There you go. Guy that can disengage, get off blocks. That's a big issue. You need to be able to do that. So let's talk about the corners. We'll start off with free agency. We'll talk about potential trade options, and then we'll touch on the draft a little bit. I'm not going to get too much into it, just naming 10 corners to keep an eye on. You know the drill. So again, no idea if Darius Williams is kept, and no idea if they keep Darian Kendrick. They did move on from Trey Tomlinson. Of course, the 49ers were quick to, claim him. That was petty. But anyway, let's get into it. Number 7 here is Byron Murphy Jr. I see a lot of people that are singing his praises. He is on this list for one reason and one reason only, for me to tell you why he doesn't make any sense for the Rams. This is a guy who I absolutely loved in the draft. I don't get this one. I don't. He's a Pro Bowler, but I mean, Geno Smith has as many Pro Bowls as Matthew Stafford. I don't want to take accolades away from people, but I don't know how much the Pro Bowl really means anymore. I mean, let's just talk about this. With all due respect to Tyler Huntley, he's had a good career as a spot starter, but Tyler Huntley, when he signs a deal, Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport is going to have Pro Bowl quarterback, and it's going to say Tyler Huntley. Now, do you think of Tyler Huntley as a Pro Bowler, or do you think of him as a journeyman backup spot starter? See my point? So anyway, because of that moniker and him being a Pro Bowler, this is what's going to end up happening, is that he was on a good team. He has a calculated market value on multiple sites of over $20 million a year. He's had 3 years of a passer rating over 100. Targeted pass rating over 100. He's given up 10 touchdowns the last 2 seasons. He has 9 interceptions the last 2, which of course is probably why he's getting so much interest. But he just gave up 71% of his targets this year. And this is the guy you want to give $20 million plus to. Like, for example, let's take Ahkello Witherspoon 2023, who had a similar amount of targets. He almost had over 100. Now, Byron Murphy had 107. Ahkello had just under 100. So, to explain, Byron Murphy gave up 71% of his targets. So, only 29% did he not give up. And Ahkello, in that nearly same amount of opportunities, gave up 48.5% of his targets in 2023, and that couldn't even net him a long-term deal. He had to sign for, once again, basically the veteran minimum. This isn't about me defending Ahkello. This is about me explaining why Byron Murphy, despite the fact he's 27 years old, he's not worth that deal. Let somebody else pay him. Good for him. If he gets the money, good for him. I'm not going to shame football players for getting paid, but I am going to shame, organizations for making bad deals. And to me, I see this all the time. Oh, the Rams should get Byron Murphy Jr. Why? Have you actually looked at his output? His tape? I mean, he's a solid corner, but he like down in, down out, I just don't see that consistency I want to see. And I'm not spending over $20 million. The Rams didn't let go of Jalen Ramsey to pay Byron Murphy Jr. I'm sorry. That is not what happened. If they went out and got a number one corner, and keep in mind, number one corner, Ahkello Witherspoon was cornerback one last year. He was cornerback one to finish the season last year and 2023. So CB1 just means he is the starter. He is the number one corner. That's all it means. But if you're talking about going out and getting a absolute huge superstar name, well, Byron Murphy Jr. isn't going to move that needle for me. So that's why he's 7th. I didn't add Stephon Gilmore on here because he's 34, and that doesn't make any lick of sense. Let's move on to number 6. Kendall Fuller. He's 30. Familiarity with Cam Curl, Sean McVay, Aubrey Pleasant. Was coached by Aubrey Pleasant in 2016. He's a good player. He really is. I understand he hit 30, but, he played 1,000+ snaps in 3 straight years. This past year, played half of those, but he plays outside. He is a leader. He's a good tackler. I think the big issue for him has always been he's been viewed as this slot corner when, if you've actually done your research, he hasn't really been a slot corner since 2019. So I don't know why he gets that kind of reputation, but Kendall Fuller is a solid option there to keep an eye on. Number 5 is Dante Jackson. Okay, he's 29 years of age. He's coming off his best season of his career. He's had some good years in the past, has dealt with some injuries, but he was really good this year, had a career high in picks. I just have concerns because he doesn't force PBUs. His career high is 8 going back to 2021, and he does give up quite a bit of touchdowns. Now, he's also he's not a one-year wonder because he showed you in the past he can play at a high level, but this guy's going to cash in. He's 29 years of age. I would not be surprised if he ends up getting like $10 to $15 million, and I'm not paying him that. I'm just not. So if it's lower than that, okay, but that's how I feel about that. Nate Hobbs is 25 years old. He comes in at 4th here. This is a guy that the stats aren't amazing. He's not the perfect looking corner, although I would say he looks fine as a corner. I think he's got the size, the speed, all of that. But Nate Hobbs doesn't jump off your screen. However, what I will say is that if you watch the tape, this guy is a tape darling. He does all the little things. He is so fun to watch. And I think he's a perfect fit in the slot. So if you're looking to move Kobe to the outside, go out and get Nate Hobbs. Physical guy, can play in the slot. I still think he could play on the outside, but I think he'd be best used as a nickel corner. I love his tackling ability. I love his physicality. He's not afraid. This is a guy that plays. He had a really good game against the Rams. They saw that up close and personal. Nate Hobbs has been a player that I've liked for a while. He even made my top 10. My favorite. I forget how I worded it, but my favorite defensive free agents. I forget when I even made the video. Feels like it was forever ago. But yeah, I've liked Nate Hobbs for a while. Newsflash, if you've been watching this channel, then you know. He comes in at number 4 in the free agency list. Number 3 here is DJ Reed. I see a lot of people, hey, let's get DJ Reed. Look, I'm not against DJ Reed. I've loved DJ Reed for a long time. I felt like he was so underrated, 28 years of age. More of a shutdown corner, not going to really allow too many touchdowns. Really, he's not going to allow more than 2. According to his career, he's not going to allow more than 2 touchdowns in a season, but he's not a ball hawk. So if you're looking for that, that's off the table. And he's gotten quite a bit of a penalty reputation, which I don't like. He wasn't really playing with that early on in his career. And now just the last 2 years alone, this guy has 19 penalties. That's not good because that means referees are now looking for him. And I don't love that. I mean, we saw, a big reason why I was so against L'Jarius Sneed in the offseason, and I think I was right to not give him all that money. And I know a lot of people wanted him. He was averaging a penalty per game. That does hurt you. And you can't have it both ways. You can't say Darion Kendrick's penalties, matter, but, oh, yeah, let's throw it away for L'Jarius Sneed. That's ridiculous. I mean, is L'Jarius Sneed a better corner? Yes. But now I'm paying him over $20 million where I would rather have Darion Kendrick. If I could get Darion Kendrick at $3 million versus L'Jarius Sneed of over $20 million a year, I'll take Kendrick because I think the thing that doesn't really always get over on people is this. When you're talking about players in a salary cap league, in a hard cap league, sometimes the talent doesn't necessarily supersede what you're getting with the value. And this is why I've been such a defender of why, like, the idea of getting a guy like a Kello Witherspoon and the freaking contract they got out of Cam Curl. These are cost-effective deals that allow you to make bigger splashes in free agency and allow you to do more where, you know, are you extending players or whatever, right? If you spend 20 plus million on DJ Reed, because I think that's what it's going to cost, I don't think that's cost effective. I think you have guys that are very similar to DJ Reed already on the roster, but I do really like him. And if all else fails, I'm not against bringing him in. Number two, and these are my 1-2 heavy hitters. Like, these two guys fit so well upcoming. Number two is Paulson Adebo. He's 25 years of age. He's versatile. He has 7 interceptions in the last 2 years, only 2 touchdowns given up in that span, 18 pass breakups, and a targeted passer rating below 70 in back-to-back years. So what you get with Adebo is a really smart, conscientious football player, pass breakups galore, good tackler, forced fumbles, you know, all of that, right? 6'1", $192, former third-round pick out of Stanford in 2021 by the Saints. And I think he's one of the more underrated young corners in football. He was 13th among qualified starters in targeted passer rating allowed in man coverage, and he was 26th in zone coverage in 2023. This past year, Adebo did break his leg, and that is why, like, to me, I think he's still going to get paid, and that is a little bit of a concern of mine. I don't love paying guys coming off, like, injuries like that. If you get a discount, like, okay, but again, really smart, physical. I think this guy makes a lot of sense for the Rams, you know, and we'll see if they go this route. This, to me, would be a statement. They're trying to just get younger at the position. They're trying to keep the smart players rolling in and all that. Adebo's a really good player. I just have an issue signing a guy off an injury, but again, he's good enough. I wouldn't be against it for the right price. What is that price going to look like? Well, keep in mind, you got the Patriots, who got over $100 million in cap space and could offer this guy $24 million, and he's just going to go there because he's getting a ton of money. But I think realistically, I'd be willing to spend maybe $15 million. You know, and again, a lot of that comes down to the fact that he's 26. If he was 30, I don't think he's getting $15 million. I think he's getting like 4 or 5, especially coming off a broken leg. But Adebo's a good player. He fits the Rams system, so I like him. Number one, though, is you guys know. I mean, you see the jersey in the back. You can call it Homer. I just call it like it is. Kello Witherspoon, he's 29. He's got familiarity. He's got versatility. He's the best fit for the money. He's been Mr. Reliable for the Rams, and whether you want to admit it or not, he's been the best value, one of the best, and probably the best value free agent signing in their franchise history. Because think about this. That might sound like hyperbole to you. That might sound ridiculous to you, but think about it. The salary cap era hasn't been around that long. What kind of, and think about this before, you answer in the comments, whatever. Really think. What other players have signed for $2 million, a little bit over $2 million for 2 years, essentially, back-to-back years, after being picked over for other guys, and have given you over 30 games of play, and given you your starter, given you some big-time play? I mean, Kello has been everything and more for what the Rams have asked him to do. They got lucky. This guy could have looked for, anybody else. I mean, let's backtrack here. He gets cut by the Steelers. The Rams pick him up. He's dealing with the fingers and all that. Like, he's got pins in his hands. I forget exactly what it was, but he was not fully healthy. Still by far the number one corner in camp. By the way, all the while having to fill the shoes of Jalen Ramsey. Not an easy task. So he goes ahead and does that. And then, like I said, he gives up 48% of the passes being thrown his way, almost targeted over 100 times. So he's put on essentially an island. He's being forced to play left corner on an island without any safety help the majority of the time. And he was really, really good. Then at the end of 2023, he starts falling off as far as statistical output because he's playing with a groin issue. So then all these people just remember that, and so they throw him away. Fast forward to next year. Well, told you guys, Trey, I like Trey White. I thought it was a decent signing, but I said that can't be instead of Ahkello Witherspoon. Sure enough, they signed him instead of Ahkello Witherspoon. And guess what? Darius Williams gets hurt. And guess what? Trey White is not very good right out of the gate. He's not ready. It doesn't look good. So then, all of a sudden, Ahkello Witherspoon comes into the Rams organization and he practically saves their cornerback room. And you want to say, oh, well, he got benched, middle of the season. Yeah, that was stupid. You know why? Because look, after the Bills game, Ahkello steps in and he's one of the more dominant corners in the league at that point. This is a guy who's been played around with by the Rams, and no one wants to say it, but they've kind of screwed his value. If he started this full season, then he would have gotten paid. But because he didn't, it's the whole posturing thing. Well, he hasn't played 80% of his snaps or 90% of his snaps. Yeah. How could he? He was benched in New Orleans for reasons that I can't even explain. But when push came to shove, this is what you'll remember. The interception against the Cardinals, that was the most impactful play according to NFL analytics. 1. 2, you'll remember the strip sack that led to Jared Verse flipping into the end zone in the playoffs, shutting down Justin Jefferson, shutting down Jordan Addison, shutting down whoever was in his way, whether that was A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith. He was superb in the most important part of this season. When your best is required, he had his best. And yet this guy is not getting even... Like Spotrac doesn't even have a market value for him. So you know what that tells me? The Rams could probably get him for a deal. And it's not really fair. I think he deserves more. But the reality is he's not 26. He's 29. He's close to 30. And his value's been screwed over the last 2 years. But again, he hasn't said a word, hasn't made a big deal about it, and has been willing to play for pennies on the dollar just to stay in LA and help this team win. And yet there's still people that don't want this guy back. I don't know. Again, going back to it, would you rather have Ahkello Witherspoon, let's say $5 million, or would you rather pay $20+ million to L'Jarius Sneed, who averages a penalty per game? That's my thing. Okay. Is L'Jarius Sneed $15 to $20 million more worth than Ahkello? Let me ask you this. Would you take Byron Murphy at $20+ million over a $5 million Ahkello? You can make an argument, Paulson Adebo, if you're looking for the long term and you believe that he's going to be around longer. Okay, you like Paulson Adebo more? By all means. And I think those are the two best options for the Rams. But make no mistake about it. It's not being a homer. The reality is that Ahkello Witherspoon, who I just happen to really like, of course, and he's been on my show. I'm not going to say he hasn't. But when you actually take that aside and you look at the film, you can see guys fall through the cracks in this league. Guys are pushed down. There have been guys that we've probably never even seen either start at quarterback or what have you that never got a chance because they fell through the cracks. Ahkello Witherspoon is one of those guys that has fallen through the cracks. And don't use the whole, well, he didn't sign until the regular season started. That's how good he is. It takes two to tango. And I'm sure he was offered, I know he was offered deals with other teams. He wanted to go back to the Rams. It's time for the Rams to step up. They need to pay him. Makes the most sense in the world. If it's a 1 year or 2 year deal, you need to at least bring him back. You run it back with this cornerback room. You add somebody like Nate Hobbs or somebody to this equation, or you draft somebody. I think that makes a lot of sense. But to me, if you're bringing back Darius Williams, you're bringing back Darion Kendrick, you have Kobe. Ahkello is the missing piece. He's the final piece. You're good. Draft a cornerback for the future. All right, let's get ready to try and win another Super Bowl. That is that on the free agents. Then we have the potential trade options. This is where it gets interesting, where I would almost consider, and I'm really thinking about this, I would consider trading for one of these corners that I'm going to mention and signing Ahkello and moving on from Darius Williams. You moved on from Cooper Kupp. You moved on from Jonah Jackson. It's not hard for you to move on from guys. Darius Williams, I appreciate the job he's done, but the reality is I think Ahkello is a better corner at this point. He's not going to cost as much. And yeah, I just think, Darius Williams is older. He's 2 years older. He's getting up there. He's had injuries. Wasn't really reliable at the beginning of the season because of those injuries. Of course, he stayed healthy down the stretch, but I'm still concerned about that. So if you're going to move on from anybody, I would move on from Darius Williams. Still like him, though. And Darion Kendrick is over, again, $3 million cap hit. We'll see about that. Now, potential trade options. This is where it gets interesting. Number 3 is Jair Alexander, who at one point was my favorite cornerback in the world. Loved watching him at Louisville. He was my number 1 corner in the draft. He was my 3rd overall prospect. I have been one of the biggest fans of Jair for the longest time. So it's really funny to me when people are like, what about Jair Alexander? Screw Akello. And I'm sitting there like, man, I love Jair. And I'm kind of like, I don't know, because as of late, he hasn't really stayed healthy. It's not as simple. It's not cut and dry here. He's 28. More often than not, he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. But he's always dealing with some sort of soft tissue injury. And I just don't think the Rams want to deal with that. And I don't think they should want to deal with that. This would be like a Jalen Ramsey-esque all-in move to go out and get him. He is getting cut or traded. He's not coming back to Green Bay. I don't care. So we know that much. But he hasn't given up more than 2 touchdowns in a season since 2019. He's not a much of a ball hawk, but I think the thing that makes him great is he's a great tackler. He's a shutdown guy. You can kind of just put him on an island. I do think if you could get him with Akello and then have Kobe in the slot, that would be disgusting. The question is, can you count on his health? And if he does get released, what does that contract look like? I mean, it's hard to negotiate with a guy who hasn't really been healthy as of late. But again, that's up to people beyond you and I. So we'll see. But Jair Alexander is definitely an option. I think he's probably the most realistic trade option because he's the one that's being talked about the most. But how about number 2 here? There's some speculation. Jamel Dean, 28 years old, could be available. Not enough cap space for the Bucs. They have about $7 million. So effective, they have about $4 million cap space. They're going to need to free up some cap. They did just bring back Levante David. They're going to have to find ways to work around this. They're in a weird spot. And so a lot of people have suggested they could move on from Jamel Dean. I think he'd fit the Rams defense like a glove personally. He is simply one of the best tackling corners in the league, and he's a great zone corner in general. I think Jamel Dean would make a lot of sense. What is the price? I'm not giving up a first. I'm not giving up a third, maybe like a 5th round pick and some salary cap relief, whatever, but I'm not giving up much more than that. So what does it come down to? I don't know, but that's how I feel. Number 1 is probably the least likely, but keep an eye on it because it's not impossible. And we've heard his name mentioned a little bit. The Browns were a fire sale or a fake fire sale, if you will. I remember at the deadline, everybody's available, but they wouldn't move Njoku. Anyway, Denzel Ward, 27 years of age, feels less and more likely to be traded after the Garrett signing. Which is, I'm not going to get into it, but the Browns are nuking the entire league. Paying Myles Garrett $40 million a year is absolutely insane. Not that Garrett doesn't deserve to be paid, but the Browns are just killing the market. It just absolutely, they did it with Deshaun Watson's ridiculous deal, and now they're doing it again, at least with a good player. But that could mean that Denzel Ward has to be moved. How are you going to fit him on this I just don't even know how they're going to work this. You could add void years, you could, but you already have so much like cap that it's the way the Browns run their organization. I would never run it like that in a million years, but to each their own, I guess. If they don't want to win a Super Bowl, by all means. That said, Denzel Ward has come out and said how the whole thing goes with Myles Garrett is going to be really telling on how his future goes in Cleveland. He's basically said that. So he's an elite player. He has never had a passer rating over 87 in his career, which is very good. And he's just consistent all around. Fits any scheme, elite recovery speed, just a really, really good player. this would be another like a Jalen Ramsey move, but obviously, he is getting up there at age, almost 28, as opposed to Jalen Ramsey, who's a little bit younger. But Denzel Ward, if he's available, I would not hate for the Rams to go after him. I just don't know if he will be. I could see it because now you have to pay Garrett. How are you going to fit all that in the cap? But at the same time, he might not want to leave now because they paid Garrett. So it's a really interesting thing. I don't know what the Browns are going to do. Again, what the way they're spending dollars in a cap era is in a salary cap league with a hard cap, not a soft cap, is just absolutely insane. I don't know how you can keep all these players. So they'll probably trade somebody like a Martin Emerson or, a Greg Newsome, who I've mentioned in the past as options, but I thought more about it. And Martin Emerson, while he had an elite season in 2023, 2024 was a down year. And I just don't see how either of those guys are better than some of the options in free agency or the options I just listed. So again, Denzel Ward, least likely, but keep an eye on him. Jamel Dean hasn't been outright said to be looking for a trade, or the Bucs haven't, but there's a lot of speculation out there from, insiders and what have you that he could be traded. Jair Alexander is either going to get traded or he's going to get cut. So he will be available in some capacity. If he is cut and the Rams can double dip on corner and get Akello and Jair, I'm all for it. For the right price, of course. I'm not giving Jair Alexander $20 million so he can go and get a soft tissue injury and he's not available in the postseason. That's just how I feel. So again, this all comes down to the fact I'm very unsure about what they do with Darius Williams and Darian Kendrick. I right now lean towards the idea. I think they want Akello back. I know Akello wants to be back. I mean, you guys have heard of himself on this channel. He wants to remain a Ram. He wanted to last year. He's had to really swallow his pride. He's had to swallow his ego. He is signed for a lot less money than he probably should have. But, he really wants to be a Ram. So we'll see what ends up happening. I lean towards the fact that Kello is back, and I feel like they'll probably draft a corner. I could see them adding, somebody in, via a trade. And if they move on from Darius Williams, I could see them getting a Kello, having Kobe, and then going out and trading for, or signing Jair Alexander. I think that would probably be the move. Jamel Dean is probably the best fit. As far as the draft, you got Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, who everybody in Rams land loves, Siobhan Ravel Jr., Benjamin Morrison, Trey Amos, Azure Thomas. Sorry if I butchered that name. Zy Alexander, Maxwell Hairston, Darian Porter, and Denzel Burke. So who are my three go-tos in this one? I'm going to tell you right now. Number one is Akello Witherspoon. I don't care what anyone says. Cost-effective, consistent. I mean, best ability is availability. That guy doesn't miss games unless the Rams bench him for whatever reason. And he's played at a high level in the biggest moments of his Rams career. So I think it's best to bring him back, probably on a 2-year deal. I think he should get at least $10 million a year. He'll probably get around 5 to 7, but that's how I would do it. And I kind of lean towards that's what they'll do, but we'll see. So he's number one. Number two, potential trade option. I'm actually going to go against my gut here, or go back to the old Jake. I'm going to say Jair Alexander. I actually like as the second option behind Akello, because I think he is going to be available. He'll probably not get traded because everybody knows that he doesn't want to be there anymore. So you've lost all leverage there. And the Rams have seen this guy. He is a very, very good corner when he's healthy. They have enough depth too where, if he goes down, you got Kobe, you got Darian Kendrick, you got Emmanuel Forbes. I think you could actually take that risk if you get a guy like Jair Alexander. I'm not kidding you. So I like Jair Alexander after Akello. And then number three is Paulson Adebo. Adebo is probably the best option if you're looking to add somebody for the long haul. But as far as in the immediate, it's Akello for, I also think Akello is way better than a lot of people do. And I know they always clown me for that. But it's just like the constant, I think he's been covered unfairly. I will say Jordan Rodriguez did a great, had a great article on him, did an interview with him and all that. I like that. But I feel like there are other people that have covered him unfairly, have reached on the fact like, oh yeah, he didn't make that tackle on Saquon Barkley. Like they forgot that he was playing with a groin that had acted up the week before. Like they forgot that they were in a blizzard, right? And you don't have the footing. It's also Saquon effing Barkley. How the hell is he going to catch up to Saquon Barkley? He was also being held by AJ Green on that play. So yeah, I don't think the coverage has necessarily been too fair with Okello. And I wish people would look at it from a perspective of this guy makes so much sense for not just the money, but he has filled the shoes of Jalen Ramsey and has done it as best as he possibly could. And I just don't know how you watch the end of his season when he fills in for an injured Kobe Durant at the end of that Bills game, how Josh Allen wouldn't throw anywhere near him. We're talking about the MVP of the league. Goes into San Francisco, immediately sets the tone. First play of the game, they go to Deebo Samuel, just completely stifles him. Has 3 pass breakups in that game. Then he does what he does against the Jets. I mean, there's a play where Cam Curl, forces a strip sack on Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is looking for Devontae Adams, and Okello has him blanketed. And that's not even including the 4th down pass breakup he had in the end zone. I mean, that game could have been a loss. And then you look at the job he does against Minnesota and his ability not just in coverage against a Justin Jefferson or a Jordan Addison, but his ability as a blitzer. And then in addition to that, you look at the Eagles game, and this guy is so confident and he's getting guys lined up. That's another thing that doesn't get talked about. He is so in tune, and a big reason why Sean McVay likes him so much is because this guy communicates. Go and watch the tape. He's always trying to get his guys on the field lined up correctly. So imagine this. You get a linebacker like Jamie Sherwood that knows where he needs to be. You put him next to Omar Speights. Now Okello doesn't have to worry about getting them lined up correctly. Jamien's going to know where he needs to be. He's also just very good in general. It's an upgrade. Then you have Okello who can focus on what he's doing. And that's the thing. He's a C without a C on his chest. He's a captain without a C on his chest. And I think he would get that. If he came back this year, I think he'd get that. But again, that is my plea there. Okello, Jair, and Paulson Adebo. Let me know your 3 in the comment section below. I know a lot of people seem to be warming up to the idea of having Okello around a little bit longer. Some are still against him, but I always give my thoughts, never going to say, yeah, this is my take and not bring up any stats or anything to back it up. But that's just me. Hope you guys enjoyed. The next video is likely going to be the mock free agency video. So get ready for that. But I'm Jake Ellenbogen. Be sure to check out my social media at JKBogan. All social media, by the way, at JKBogan. And be sure to check out today's sponsor, Mando. I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks. All right, guys. So once again, just want to let you guys know that you can check out my new side project, The Lounge. I interview athletes, musicians, actors, actresses, all the 9. So definitely check it out over on the Lounge with Jake Ellenbogen channel. Be sure to subscribe and enjoy. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.